It's another Sunday. Yesterday was raining all day. And today we've decided to walk one of the more formed fire trails rather than just along the road. I'm not going to take him on a crazy cross-country adventure like I did a little while back with barely a path to follow. There's actually evidence of that somebody's been down here or come back up here in a four-wheel drive in the last few days. Part of it looked like this morning because there was like fresh mud splash. Just drove us to a little bit of a different spot rather than our regular spot. Fair bit of erosion down here, so I understand why they don't want just anybody and everybody racing through here. Monday, and we've just finished another year 10 class, and the seat that the guys fixed up last year, because we've had all the metal ones come in to replace it, you can see just outside, they actually dismantled it, reclaimed whatever timber they could out of it. Some small bits here which I might see if I can do like jewellery boxes or bowls or something with. But when they were putting it together, we wanted to make sure that nobody could sit there and surreptitiously undo all the bolts. So they bent all the bolts over. So it took them quite a while to get it off, and they started just sort of breaking it apart. Managed to salvage what we could. Student's got his cushion part ready. There's another one who did his sanding, you see down on the front bench. Couple that were getting bowls ready. This one had glued up a larger blank on Friday, and I'm showing him how to do the bowl where you do it from both sides. You do the bottom first, put in a mortise for the other chuck. Turn your bottom, then turn it around and hollow it out. So that's what he's working on. Another student doing the first little practice bowl, working this one, we just work on it from the front the whole time. So she's working at trying to get that rounded. Another one on here to get his first bit of practice on the lathe. He hasn't been on it yet, so he just does a little bit of spindle turning. One of the things that I'm going to do now, I've got a little bit of a break and I just want to get my mind in order. I'd started trying to do a flat platter out of some scrap offcuts that I found in the storeroom, and I hit a biscuit just here, and I stopped and started again with another piece of timber that I could find. And then I realised the other day that this biscuit doesn't go all the way through, so I should be able to get this dished out and save this project. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a go at getting that done. Well, was going well, but then I tried to change the design and I wasn't liking the way it was as a square platter because it wasn't quite square, so I thought I'd turn it down round and was doing it really lightly, and I've just discovered that it wasn't a really good glue joint where that biscuit was. It came down really nice here, not this nice. Just realised you're right next to this dust extractor, it's probably really loud, but just then it popped, and that's a clean break right along the glue line. I'd done well not to make a funnel of it, but it broke, so it was a worthwhile experiment, but it just didn't work. Clean up, go back to the staff room. Thought I'd try a little bit of experiment with some of that timber from the table by doing like a bit of resawing. So that's what the outside's like. That's what the inside, but you notice those marks on it? I'll give you a second. So that's the other side of that. And then the next run I just put through rather fast. So those are a little bit further apart, and that's the little bit I got off the outside. Beautiful looking timber, but that ticking means that I've got a kink in the blade somewhere. Opened up the bandsaw so that I could spin it around by hand and have a look and see whether it's one or more. See that one? I'm not sure if that's where the join is, but that gets stuck in the guides. A little bit of a twist there that you can see. And there's a fairly big kink there, which is a tough one to get through the bottom guide again. And then back to my original one. So in terms of resawing, I can use this, the blade is still really sharp. And then run that sort of stuff through the thicknesser. But I'm going to go and check the storeroom and see if I've got a new blade, because I'll keep this one as a spare, as a last minute type thing. Let's see if I've got a new blade with good teeth on it that aren't going to be kicked about. Now that I think about it, the kink could quite possibly be when I was cutting up that round stock, the branches back in the hole days, and it grabbed and jumped on me. Good chance that that's the cause. Found a blade, doesn't look quite as aggressive as that one. That one's like a 4 to 5 TPI. This one's like a 5.5 to 6 TPI. Not quite as aggressive, but it's straight. I used to like throwing these out onto the ground to make them undo, but sometimes they don't do it properly. If you can be really careful, you can just undo them. That last blade really did make a mess of the top of the drive wheel. It kind of heats it up, and because it was all crooked, it roughs it up as well. It's all loose. Gonna try and just scrape that off, clean it up a bit so it's tracking better. Kind of see it on the top wheel, but it's nowhere near as bad. Our saws at school have brass guides. They've got a ball bearing at the back for your thrust bearing, which the blade rests up against. Same with the bottom one. There's a thrust bearing here, which the blade just pushes up against. But then there's these two brass guides which keep the blade, and they sit just behind the teeth. And it looks right for this blade as well. It's a 10mm blade, which I think the other one was too. Teeth aren't going to come into contact with the guides, and it's just touching the thrust bearing nicely there. So I just need to get the tension right. Sounds much nicer, and it's tracking nice too. Much nicer. And just in case anybody asks, it's a wood fast machine, which is what most machinery is in a lot of the older schools. The lathes are wood fast machines. Machine, or the brand, or the company that got the contract for schools many years ago, and this school was built in the 70s, and these are the original machines from the school. Now they've got that new blade on there, I'm going to try another resaw and see how that goes. Definitely not as fast, being a smaller, higher 2 count, but the surface finish is much nicer, apart from where I paused. Like, as opposed to these giant ticks, it's just got regular little teeth marks. Just came in here to do a little bit more reorganising. My teaching space, whiteboard, blackboard, first aid kit moved to there instead of in front of the door. Smartboard, more cupboards, the one for the books, still need to bring the books over. I got all that timber moved into this rack over here. So all the shorter pieces of the 65 by 19, 70 by 35 and the 90 by 35. My longer pieces go onto the tables. But this space that's been opened up, you can see that, I reckon I could fit another workbench in there, or have another workbench there, spin this around a little bit, make a little bit more room in here for the classes, and maybe that way I'd get the tables away from down near the power saw, near the drop saw, that when they're working, they might be all up closer up this end of the room. Tall cupboard that was here next to it, I was wondering whether to keep it or get rid of it. It's moved over next to the door, so it's got like the boots for concreting, it's got other vests. I've still got to find a spot for my hand sanitizer. That used to be sitting there. Got a little bit more tidying up to do. Packing up some of these sawhorses helped. All the ones that have been completed, I've just sort of got stacked there. I've still got to think of what I'm going to do in that space there now. Maybe a little bit of sheet storage because it's sort of like an unused space otherwise. The one thing that popped into my head is that if I do end up doing this as the classroom for everything, this is where theory can be as well. I'm going to have to get some stools back in here or work on the idea I had of the stools that hang off the corners, similar to what Neil Pask made and showed in one of his videos. So I've got plenty of steel here that I could actually make the little swing frames, and if they were all attached to all the tables, then I'd always have stools in here, but they wouldn't be getting in the way under everybody's feet. Next thing to do will be to get that door onto there for the year 11 cabinet storage. Try out stuff in here, new stuff, get this place reorganised. Got to order some timber. This is actually feeling pretty good. Yeah, I think I could put 2 benches that way. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. So the workshop's had a little bit more of a rearrange. The first 2 benches at the front, there's a bit more room around the side of them and in between them, and with those cabinets gone they can move around there, and that's sawhorses. Temporary. Move these 2 further up, so all the ones with the vices are up this end. Got the lower metal bench down the end. Cleared the space around the saw a little bit, so that like I used to have a table, one of these tables was here and the vice was right here with the saw right behind you. So, and got the other door installed, so I've got year 11 and year 12 storage, and the year 11s and some of the year 12s saw it for the first time today, so it's starting to get used. So I've got to fix up the new dust extraction a bit better. I tested out the smart board. It connected to a laptop, but unfortunately the Wi-Fi here is really bad and I couldn't get connected with the laptop, so I'm going to bring in one of my old smaller ones, which I use just for showing demonstration videos and things, and see if I can connect that up so that I can have that on the big screen for demonstration stuff, because I really want to do a demonstration video of that sawhorse. The year 12s helped me move those tables because I couldn't do it, and I did it with all the timber still in it. I semi-finished that platter that I was working on. After it blew apart, I didn't want to lose it. I'd spent too much time on it, so I re-glued it and put some weight on it to try and keep it flat and everything. The glue joint came off well. It's a beautiful colour. It's come up really nicely. I've deliberately kept this big inclusion in it that I think adds a lot of character to it. But I did get it round. It's a nice thin platter. It's so close to becoming a donut, like the old funnel club. Because this is so flat, I think if I go any lower or try and go any closer, it's going to become a donut. And I was really wary of that when I was working on it, so I stopped using tools on it once I'd got all the shaping done, and it's still a little bit uneven on the front, and I just went to sanding, and I was kind of rushing it, and I've jumped from a really coarse sandpaper to something that's a bit finer without really going through the grits, and after putting some wax on it, I can see
concentric scratch marks on both the front and the back of it. So because it was really hard to get at the back of it on the school lathe, I'm going to take it home and put it on that big chuck that I got with the lathe, the big super chuck, because I can put it on and be able to sand the back of it and finish the back off better, and then flip it back around and go from there. First time turning like a flat platter, or first and second, because when I'd first started this one and hit the biscuit, I gave up on that and started another one. Then it was later that I thought actually I could finish this off and go down through the biscuit to the timber, and it's actually worked. So morning, going in just a little bit earlier today, not to get to work earlier, but I got to drop the truck off for a warranty issue, because my service airbag light came on and it won't go away. It had come on just before it had a service last week, the week before. The weeks are merging too quickly. And they said they checked it, cleared the light, and it was fine. And then after I picked it up, it came back on again, and now it's on all the time. And I went back to them and they gave it a double check, and they went, yeah, we can't clear it this time, so it's something that we've got to do as a service. So I'm doing that today. I'm going to ask them to check another little thing that I think's a little weird. There's been about 5 or 6 times where I've started the car in the morning or the afternoon, and the rear passenger window went down. And I put it back up. Last week at the conference, when I was leaving the conference, it just started to go down as I was driving out of the driveway, and I tried putting it back up, and the control at the driver's door would put it down but not up, so I had to reach through and put it up from the back. Obviously a switch issue or loose wire or something. I've got a workmate picking me up from the garage to continue on to work and then drop me back. I'm glad there's a few work colleagues who live in the same sort of direction as I do. I asked my mate, who I usually get a lift in with, and I give him lifts sometimes, that sort of stuff, and I asked him, and unfortunately today is the day where the timetable I gave him actually has a before school class, which means he has to be in at work really early, so he couldn't give me or pick me up. So, and thinking about today, I was listening to Fools with Tools yesterday. We were talking about obsolescence, planned obsolescence, and having things that you can repair yourself, and having the good old days and that sort of stuff. And I kind of agree with Steve a bit. Like, one of the reasons I like having Max the van so much is because I could work on him and pretty much fix just about anything there was an issue with, except for recently. And even the same with the Suzuki. Like, the Suzuki was newer, 2003, but I could still work on that. Like, there were things that I could do on it myself. This truck, number one, it's a diesel, so I'm not as familiar with diesel engines. I could figure my way around it, but it has the added thing of turbo and all the electronics and the computer in the car that you just don't know about now. Having that new-ish, because it's not brand new, but having the new car thing of it's reliable, it should start all the time and everything like that, but then you just have these little niggly things with it, like warning lights and power windows that go down. In the life of the vehicle so far, that I've had it for a year, it's been on the road the whole time. With the van, I was on and off the road all the time, but I was able to fix it to get it back on the road, and it was just this last time, it was just like, it's stumped me. I think I've got it figured out, but I've just got to make time to do that. I was going to try and do that in the holidays, too much other stuff came up. And like, Al going after one of those early model Suzuki Vitaras, I think they're an excellently built vehicle, which is why I had mine for 17 years. It was great car. Still is a great car, I just don't want to put the money into it.
Another construction shop update. Moved the screws from over there to down here. It's a perfect size spot for it. Means the kids can get access to it well. Made a new rack for the saws so that the blades are facing inwards when you're going to get them. Moved my tri-squares there. The screws where I just put this box up here, and that's where I can put my folders. I'll bring my other one over there. That way, always got a spot for the folders. Kids' folders are over there. I've got to find somewhere for the files. I'm making a new rack for the files that isn't down the front of this room. Righty-o. Just finished with year 12. We had a double today, so first period, last period, and I think the rain kept a lot of the kids away. So I only had a couple of kids here that worked on their stuff. One helped me clean up a bit this morning, the other one was doing his assignment. And then they were the only two again this afternoon. Year 11, about 2/3 of the class. And they work really well. If you have a look at the room, it looks clean and usable now. I've got the sawhorses just sort of stacked here. These ones on this side, they're all the first tries. These ones here are the first and second tries of the students who've actually finished. So there's a complete. So they've got their practice one and their real one there. And I've stacked them up, and I actually said to one of them, because he was here today, if you want to take it home, take it home. Otherwise I'm just going to be dismantling it, which he saw, like I was doing that with some of the ones from last year. So I've managed to claim back a bit of 70 or a bit of 65 by 19, a bit more of the 70 by 35, and a few good bits of 90 by 35. I need a better spot for the vest, because if the class isn't quite full, having the vest hanging there kind of blocks your view of some of the kids down the end. So I need to fix that. Tested out the laptop with the board. Works beautifully now. It wasn't calibrated at first, and then when I changed the aspect ratio to 4:3, which this board is, rather than widescreen, which is the laptop, it was bang on exactly where you touched it. So I'll have to have just a slightly distorted picture. But that's alright. It just means that if there's a video of me, I'll look tall and skinny. So the bell is just gone. I've got to go and grab my stuff and get over to one of my workmates' staff rooms, because he's going to give me a lift to go and pick up my truck from its service.